My name is Marquee, musician, rapper, record producer, unashamed craft follower, and today we're going to make a lo-fi beat in Logic Pro 10.
Marquee Productions.
So in my last few videos, I've been breaking down songs from my most recently released lo-fi style beat tape called Study Time 2, and today we'll be breaking down track 3 called Fireplace. So when I stepped in the studio and started working on the song, I knew that the first instrument that I wanted to add was a Rhodes piano. So I opened up Omnisphere and I played this. I don't consider myself a very strong piano player by any means, so sometimes I do remember exactly what I played, and other times something like this I kind of just knocked out, don't really remember exactly what I played, but I did play it. Okay, here's a line that's actually simple enough for me to play live on camera. So after adding in that Rhodes piano sound, I knew I wanted to add in some more melodies. So I pulled up this dulcitone sound from Omnisphere and played this. So that sound sounded cool on its own, but I wanted to make it sound more interesting. So I'm not that much of a sound designer. I know just enough to manipulate sounds a certain way. So I don't recall how much tweaking I actually did in the Omnisphere patch that this is from, but I did grab my favorite plugin, RC20, some add some effects to it, and this is what it turned out sounding like afterwards. What I have going on there is a bit crusher effect, which adds another texture to the sound, makes it sound more full, a lot more interesting. It's like a very subtle digital distortion type effect. And if you have Logic, there is a bit crusher that comes with Logic. And you don't always need stuff additional to the stock plugins in your DAW, but if you want different effects that sound more creative, more interesting, it can be a wise investment to go out and purchase other plugins. But do not go crazy with it. There are some people who just purchase plugins like crazy. They don't even use half the ones that they have, and they just waste a lot of the money. Ridiculous. Be responsible. So I follow the chords that I played on the Rhodes piano on the bass, and it sounds like this. Really simple, not that much going on there. I probably pulled that sound out of Monarch by Native Instruments. It definitely was something by Native Instruments. It's a sub bass sound. It has a cool movement thing going on in there. And I picked this specific patch because I have some go-to sounds for sub basses that are either in something by Native Instruments or maybe something from Omnisphere. But I wanted to try using a sound that I didn't use before, that didn't sound super duper generic. And this bass sound fit that description for me. It still sounded like a typical sub bass, but since it has that little bit of movement, it just adds another character that I haven't used in my previous lo-fi beats. And even if it is subtle, it adds a character that I just find makes the song more interesting. Later on in the beat, to keep up with the sound that I have throughout the rest of this beat tape, I wanted to add in some guitar, and this is one of the ones that I played. This part was super simple. It was just me playing this one chord, and then I moved one of my fingers up a fret. Super simple. And then I have another guitar playing a melody that sounds like this. Also really simple. So a lot of these parts, they sound really simple on their own, because they are. And then after I record them, I just go in and add different effects that make these parts sound a lot less boring. So here's what these guitar parts sound like together after I added on all the effects. So what I have going on that makes them sound more interesting is actually on the lead guitar. I use this plugin called RC20, which gives like a warbly effect. So it still sounds like a guitar, but the sound of it just shifted into something completely different. And then I also have a flanger on there. It had another different texture, another bit of movement, which makes that melody that sounds really simple, maybe even boring to some people, just stand out a bit more, sound more interesting. And to me, carefully adding different effects is kind of like adding seasoning to food, and it can make certain things just sound more interesting, stand out a bit more. just maybe make things sound a lot less boring and just give certain instruments their own character that they didn't have before. So when it came to the chorus of the song, I didn't want the whole song to sound like it was just one loop, so I decided to switch up the chords in the chorus. I don't remember what was going on, but I do remember that I was in somewhat of a time constraint. I probably either had to leave the studio or just work on something else. So I played this, and it was initially supposed to be filled out with more complex chords later, but I ended up sticking with this. So here's what I played. So I initially took out the sub bass and I actually just played that on the Rhodes piano. And like I said, I initially was going to add more notes to the chord to make it sound more full, but then I actually decided to just leave that alone and just play some chords on my nylon guitar. So I grabbed my nylon guitar and I played a few different parts to make everything sound full, and here's what I'm pretty sure one of them is. And I played that twice to make everything sound full, and then add another higher layer on top of these chords. I played this. And even after adding all of that, for some reason I thought it still sounded a bit empty, so I thought, why not have like a really simple guitar solo in a lo-fi song? So here's what I came up with. So all those parts are cool. They may sound boring on their own, but they sound cohesive together. But then also to make all the parts a lot more interesting, of course, I added on some more effects. I added in different reverb effects, and I also used the RC20 plugin again to make things sound more vintage, adding in some effects that kind of sound like they degrade the sound, add noise to it, different things like that to just add different textures to the sound and make them sound a lot less boring. So here's what all the parts sound like together after I put on all the effects. So you see, adding on those different effects makes everything sound a lot more interesting. You don't necessarily need to rely on effects to make a song sound interesting, but maybe for certain songs or maybe certain styles of music, adding on, different delays, different reverbs, different plugins that add different textures to your sound can make them sound a lot more interesting. And speaking of adding layers and textures, there's one other little background texture that I used in this part of the song that's really subtle, but still makes this part of the song more interesting. And it sounds like this. This is why it's called Fireplace, that fire sound. I just looked up some fire sound effects on YouTube and then imported them into Logic. You'll find that a lot of lo-fi style songs have like little textures in the background that may not always be very audible and are really just meant to be there in the background, but without them, the song sounds like it's missing something. So in the second half of the chorus, I knew I wanted the energy to come up just a little bit. So all I did was simply just copy those notes I played on the Rhodes up onto the sub bass to just give it just a little more oomph. And this is what it sounds like. Really simple. I probably just copied and pasted it and called it a day. Here's the drum groove that I used in the song. Like a lot of the drum patterns in this whole beat tape, it's really simple, really straight to the point. So the drums knocking really hard, just because even though some people don't like doing that in lo-fi, I just personally like how it sounds. And like the rest of the songs on this tape, I don't heavily quantize the drums at all, or really the majority of the instruments that I played. For this particular style of music, I like things sounding more human, more natural. So when there are little tiny imperfections, even if they're just like a couple milliseconds off beat, to me that sounds cool. That sounds a lot more human. And even though it's very subtle, it makes things sound more interesting. interesting. And if you haven't noticed, that is a pattern that I use throughout this song and also a lot of the other songs that I make. Whenever you do anything, whether it's a very small detail to something that's a lot less subtle and more obvious, they all add up together and create a masterpiece. Sometimes when you add a little instrument that maybe in the background is not very easily heard, if it's not there, it sounds empty. Sometimes adding that little effect to a sound may be really subtle. You may have to like really pay attention to hear it, but then if you turn it off or take the instrument out completely, it sounds empty. Even if it's really subtle, even if it's really in the background, those little details really do matter and they make music sound a lot more interesting. So now that you've seen me break down the entire song, here's a preview of it. There will be a link to it in the description below, as well as the cards. It will be somewhere in this area. And here's a preview of the song called Fireplace. Watching this video. If you like what you've seen today, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you know whenever I upload new videos. Also be sure to visit my website, marqueeproductions.com, where you'll be able to check out my music, my beats, my sample kits, my merchandise, and my mixing, mastering, and consulting services. Now go down in the comment section below and let me know what you think about this video. If there's anything that needed more explaining, if there's anything that you're confused about, let me know in the comment section below. And be sure to stream this song as well as the rest of Steady Time 2. I'll leave a link to the rest of the beat tape in the description below. My name is Marquee Productions. God bless.